This is Algebra 2, test number 6, study guide through lesson 2.3. First question tells you to graph the equation 3x plus 6y equals 6 by finding the intercepts. This is something we barely got to yesterday. 3x plus 6y equals 6. If you want to find the x-intercept, you plug in 0 in place of y. So 0 times anything is going to be 0. So 3x plus 6 times 0 equals 6. That cancels this part out and simply leaves you with 3x equals 6. We know how to get x by itself. You divide by 3, so the x-intercept is going to be 2. You know that this is the x-axis, so that means it's crossing through the x-axis at 2. And again, you can just sketch this graph. In order to find the y-intercept, you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to plug in 0 in place of x. Again, 0 times, or 3 times 0 plus 6y equals 6. Anything times 0 makes it 0, which cancels it out. 6y equals 6. We know how to get y by itself. You divide by 6, so y-intercept is 1. This is your y-axis. Correct. This is just finding the intercepts. This is, again, just to finish it up, your y-intercept is at 1. So you have 2 points. This is just 2 different methods to graph. There's actually another method to graph, which is the one we're going to use when we start doing quadratics, where you just plug in different values of x and solve for y. But it just tells you to find the intercepts. This is easier typically. This is easier when it's in standard form like this. It's faster to use the intercepts. But if you feel more comfortable graphing using the slope-intercept form, that's fine. Same thing with this one. If you wanted to move this one to make it say y equals mx plus b, you could do that. But the form it's in, it's actually faster to find the intercepts. So if you find the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y. So what that leaves you with is negative x. That part right there cancels, equals 12. That's negative 1 times x. When you divide by negative 1 on both of them, the x-intercept is at negative 12. And my graph isn't big enough. So it's going to be right down here at negative 12. And I just did the y for some reason. The x-intercept is going to be right over here at negative 12. In order to find the y-intercept, you do the same thing, except you plug in 0 for x. So that leaves you with negative 0. That cancels that part right there out. 3y equals 12. When you divide by 3 on both sides, your y-intercept is 4. So this is your y-axis, your y-intercept's 4. You have your 2 points, you can draw your line, should look like that. If you went ahead and solved for y equals mx plus b, you'll notice your graph looks just like that. Again, 2 different ways. Finding the slope of the line through these 2 points right here, we have them, they're fractions. So what you want to do is your change of y, so y sub 2 minus y sub 1, negative 1 over 2 minus y sub 1, negative 2 over 3. We know minus a negative means plus a positive, but we have 2 different denominators. One's 2 and one's 3, so we have to change them and make them both 6. Multiply by 3, that's negative 3 over 6. Multiply 3 by 2, that's plus 4 over 6. So negative 3 plus 4 is going to leave you with 1 over 6. That's your change of y, so 1 over 6 is going to go on top. This is going to look funny, but watch and see how it's going to look. 1 over 6. And your run is 0 minus 1/2. 0 minus 1/2 is going to be negative 1/2. So this is what you should have for your slope right here. 1/6 over negative 1/2. Okay, the question was asked, how do you graph that? You actually, you don't need to graph it just for this one, but if you wanted to go a little bit farther, you can say, just look and see what it says. 1/6, this says divided by negative 1/2. So if you wrote it this way, 1/6 divided by negative 1/2, it would be the same thing as 1/6 times the reciprocal, negative 2 over 1, which is simply negative 2. Multiply straight across. 1 times negative 2 would be negative 2. Over 6 times 1 would be 6. So when you simplify that, I know this is going into a long problem, would be negative 1 over 3 would be your actual final slope. And that's a whole lot easier for most people to understand. But this is as far as you're going to have to show for this problem. But it is negative 1/3 when you continue. Okay, the picture's a little bit easier. Just make sure you look and see what it's counting by. Notice it's counting by 2 each of the marks that's shown, because it says 4 and it says 8. So from this point right here, the 2 that are highlighted, you're going to go down 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then it's in half. So 10 and then in half would be down 11 for this one. So negative 11 and over 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then another 1/2. So 12 plus 1 would be 13. So that should be your slope for the picture, negative 11 over 13. 5's a whole lot easier. You're dealing with integer numbers. So your change of y, 7 minus 5 is 2. Over your change of x, 9 minus 10 is negative 1. This looks a little bit better. Just simply write it as your slope as negative 2. There's no reason to have it over 1. Number 6 says simplify by combining the like terms. You know you can put your c's together, c and negative 9c. So c minus 9 or 1 minus 9 would be negative 8c. And you could put your d's together, negative 5d and negative 4d. Same sign, so you can add them up. Negative 9d for that one. You have to distribute first for number 7. Negative 3 times positive 3 is negative 9y. Negative 3 times 4 is minus 12. Bring down your plus 3y. Put your like terms together, negative 9y and positive 3y. That's opposite signs, so subtract them. 9 minus 3 is 6. Keep the sign of the larger one, negative 6y, and then bring down the rest of the problem, minus 12. Number 8, solving these equations, you have y on both sides. So put the smaller one over to the larger one, negative 7y, add 7 to both sides. When you add 7 to 3y, you get 10y here. It's positive. You still have negative 5 on the right, and this cancels. You still have negative 9 on the left. You brought 10y to the right, bring negative 5 to the other side, add 5 to both sides. When you add 5 to negative 9, you get negative 4. It cancels out the negative 5. You still have 10y on the right. In order to get y by itself, divide by 10. Do it here as well. Divide by 10. The number 2 goes into both of these. It goes into negative 4 negative 2 times, and it goes into 10 5 times. So y equals negative 2 over 5. You have to distribute the right side to simplify it before you try to move anything across the equals. Negative 2 times y is negative 2y. Negative 2 times 10 is minus 10. 6y minus 4 equals that. Get rid of minus 2y or move it over by adding 2y to both sides. 6y plus 2y we know is going to be 8y. Bring down your minus 4. Cancel that out. Bring down your minus 10. Undo minus 4 by adding it to both sides. If you add it here, negative 10 plus 4 is going to be negative 6. Cancel it here. 8y equals negative 6. Get y by itself by dividing by 8. Y equals, the number 2 goes into both. It goes into negative 6, negative 3 times, and then in 8 4 times. Y is negative 3 over 4. Number 10 says 6 times x minus 0.8. Distribute 6 times that is 6x. Distribute 6 times negative 0.8 is negative 4.8. Negative 0.2 times 5x is negative 1.0x. Negative 2. Negative 0.2 times negative 8 is negative 4 is going to be negative 8.0 or simply negative 8. I'm sorry, negative 0.8. And all of that equals negative 1. Combine all of your like terms. 6x minus 1x is the same thing as 1.0x is going to give you 5x. Negative 0.48 minus, and it's not minus, I got interrupted for a second. It's actually, this is negative 0.2 times negative 4, so that's going to be plus 0.8. So when you combine negative 4.8 and positive 0.8, it leaves you with negative 4, and that equals negative 1. Now you have something that's a whole lot simpler for most people. Undo minus 4 by adding 4 to both sides. 5x equals, when you add 4 to here, negative 1 plus 4 is going to be positive 3. Get rid of 5 times x by dividing by 5. X equals 3 over 5. Number 11 is a whole lot easier and faster for most people. Undo the addition. Remember, you work, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, in reverse when you're undoing it. That's why you always do addition and subtraction first. So undo 4, addition of 4 by subtracting it. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7 equals x over 8. Then undo your multiplication and division by canceling out divide by 8, by multiplying by 8. If you do the right, multiply the left by 8. Negative 7 times 8 is negative 56. Negative 56 equals, this cancels out, simply x is negative 56. Number 12 says 6 plus 8n equals 38. Undo positive 6 by subtracting it. That leaves you with 8n equals, when you subtract 6 from 38, you get 32. Undo 8 times something by dividing by 8, and you get n is 4. 5 times y, 5 times 3. Get rid of plus 15 by subtracting it on both sides. 5y equals 35. Get rid of multiply by 5 by dividing it on both sides. Y is 7. 14 says to simplify this, you got to do its inside parentheses first. You got to do the order of operations once you're inside parentheses. That means to square 4. 4 squared is going to be 16. So you have negative 3, positive or plus 16. Then inside of the other side of parentheses, 4 minus 2 is going to be 2, and that's going to be cubed. Still do its inside parentheses. Negative 3 plus 16 is going to be 13. And then 2 cubed is 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8. So now you wind up with 13 times 8. You know that 8 times 10 is 80, and 8 times 3 is 24. So 80 and 24 is going to be 104. '15 tells you to graph these relations. Okay, and again, you could just draw yourself. You don't have to have a nice, neat graph like this. I just thought it'd be easier to show y'all up on the screen. Negative 1, just remember it's x comma y. Negative 1, 1/2. So at negative 1, 1/2, be halfway between them. At negative 1/2, negative 1, negative 1 has to be halfway, and then on the line. At 3/2, 3/2 is the same thing as 1/2. So at 3/2 is 1/2, and 0 would be on that line there, right in the middle. And then at 2, 3/2, again, 3/2 is 1/2. I'm sorry, 3/2 is 1/2. At 2, 1/2 would be your next point. It says find the domain and range. That's the second part. Domain is all of your x values. So each of these are your domains. So domain would be the smallest number first, negative 1. Then the next smallest number, negative 1/2. Then the next smallest number is 3/2, and then finally the largest one is 2. That's your domain. Your ranges are all of your y values. So your ranges are 1/2, negative 1, 0, and 3/2. Again, go with the smallest number, write them in ascending order. So negative 1, then 0, then 1/2, and then 3/2 are your ranges. 16 tells you to make a mapping diagram. So just make yourself 2 boxes or 2 ovals. Some people use those. Write all of your x values or your inputs on the left. So negative 3, smallest one, then negative 2, then 0, then 4. On the right, write all your y values. Again, write them in ascending order. So negative 4 is your smallest one, then negative 2, then 3, then 4. And then your relations are which ones connect to which. Negative 3 connects to positive 4, so these two go with each other. Negative 2 goes with negative 2, so straight across with those. 0, 3, straight across again. And then 4, negative 4 goes that way. That's what a mapping diagram looks like. Again, it could have looked like 2 ovals would have been the same thing. 17 says 4f of x equals negative 2x minus 4. Find f of negative 1. So f of negative 1, you don't have to undo that part. It's simply negative 2 times negative 1 minus 4. Do your multiplication first. Negative times a negative is a positive 2 minus 4. So f of negative 1 equals 2 minus 4. F of negative 1, again, notice I'm not changing that part. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Says suppose f of x equals 4x minus 2, g of x equals negative 2x plus 1. Find the value f of negative 5 over g of 4. So all you're doing is taking this part right here and putting it on the top, and then taking this part right here and putting it on the bottom with those two values of f of x and g of x. So f of negative 5 is going to be 4 times negative 5 minus 2 over g of 4 is going to be this equation here. I'll do it in a different color. Negative 2 times 4, that's g of x, plus 1. Simplify the top, simplify the bottom, and then put them together. 4 times negative 5 is going to be negative 20 on top, minus 2, over negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 plus 1. Negative 20 minus 2 is negative 22. Negative 8 plus 1 is going to be negative 7. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. Other than that, 7 is a prime number. So 22 over 7 is positive, negative divided by a negative. Graph this equation. That gets a little bit quicker and easier for most of y'all. Y equals mx plus b. Your b value is negative 1. That tells you where to begin. So begin at on your y-axis at negative 1, that point there. Again, you could sketch this graph. You don't need to use graphing paper. Your m value is 1 over 4. That tells you to either rise, so positive, you're going to go up 1. So from our point, we go up 1, and run is positive to the right 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your second point right there. When you have 2 of them, you can draw your line, and it should look like that. 20 says to simplify these. Negative 7 plus negative 9, same sign. Add them up, keep the common sign. Negative 16. Negative 7 times negative 8. Negative times a negative equals a positive. 7 and 8 is 56. Negative 56, that says division in case it looks like addition on your paper. Negative 56 divided by 8, a negative divided by positive. Opposite signs now is going to be negative. 56 divided by 8 is 7. 23 says 5 over 7 divided by 7 over 8. Remember, division just means to make it multiplication and flip it and make it 28 over 7. So 5 over 7 times 28 over 7. You can simplify right here. 28 over 7 is 4 over 1. Now we're dealing with smaller numbers. 5 times 4 is 20, and 7 times 1 is 7. There's no number that goes into both of those. 24 says evaluate y equals x plus 2 times x minus 5 when x is 6. Y equals 6 plus 2 times 6 minus 5. 6 plus 2 is 8 times 6 minus 5 is 1. Y equals 8 times 1. Y equals 8. 25, 6, and 7. You're naming a property. 2 times x plus 2 becomes 2x plus 4. That's the distributive property. Pi plus 13 equals 13 plus pi. All that's doing is moving or commuting. That's the commutative property. Negative 7.2 plus 0 stays negative 7.2. Its identity doesn't change. That is the identity property. And both of these are of addition. 28 says to evaluate 5a plus 2b when a is negative 1 and b is 1. 5 times negative 1 plus 2 times 1. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. 2 times 1 is plus 2. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. X squared plus 9x plus 1. X equals 3. 3 squared plus 9 times 3 plus 1. 3 squared is 9. Plus 9 times 3 plus 1, 9. 9 times 3 is 27 plus 1. Put all of those together. 9 and 1 is 10. 27 and 10 is 37. And then the last one, negative 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus 3x minus 3 when x is 2. Negative 2 times 2 cubed plus 3 times 2 squared plus 3 times 2 minus 3. Do all of your exponents first. 2 cubed, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Negative 2 times 8 plus 3 times 2 squared is going to be 4 plus 3 times 2 minus 3. Negative 16 plus 12 plus 6 minus 3. Negative 16 plus 12 is negative 4 plus 6 is positive 2 minus 3 is negative 1.